Hello and welcome back to another episode of your new favorite podcast in the food equipment repair industry, Behind the Burner, with me and my beloved co-host, Ray Bartolomucci. I said that correctly. I know I did. But we got another special guest today. Somebody you probably already know, especially if you're watching this podcast because Ray told you to. His brother, David, who also probably told you to watch this podcast, to listen to this podcast as well. So we thought it would be important to actually kind of dig in a little bit to the past of these two individuals who are obviously the founders of Repairs. This podcast, we've only done one episode so far, but it's already gained a ton of traction. So I hope you're listening. I hope you're watching. But we're going to shed a little light on who is David Bartolomucci right now. So David, for those who don't know who you are, which I'm sure there's a small percentage, why don't you go ahead and kind of just give us your story, man. Who are you and why are you doing what you're doing?
Well, thank you, Josh, for the introduction. Really appreciate it. I'm for sure one thing that people know about me who have met me in person or seen me on Zoom or something. I'm definitely going to be the only person in the food equipment industry, only male, I guess I would say, with a nose piercing. So that would definitely be one thing that people know me by. But we do it, we rock it, we're changing things up. And, but other than that, Raymond's brother, grew up in the Bay Area, and played rugby pretty much my whole life, was working in the kitchen, just like Ray, doing the whole chef, manager, server, you name it, the whole thing. Enjoyed every second of it. Went to college in San Luis Obispo, California, studied finance, was going to be an investment banker actually. But, Ray came to me my junior year and said, "Hey man, we should start a company together." So that kind of flipped my whole plan upside down. And I think that when you have a plan that's like set for you, mentally, like you'd already put yourself on that track, and then all of a sudden you just decide to go a completely different direction. I think that it's scary, but it's also feels, I don't know, the risk factor of it was exciting to me. And, I haven't looked back since then. Ray and I started Repairs, and there was a short stint where we actually lived together in Italy, working on, I was going to say working on the company, but we're really just bartending, traveling the world. So
Wait, I have a question real quick before you go on. So you said you had this kind of plan, right? And you were going to be an investment banker, and then Ray came to you and said, "Hey, let's start a company." And that's great. But, and you mentioned the excitement about, around starting a company, but what was the real reason? What was the real reason you were like, screw investment banking, I'm going to do this? I mean, that's kind of a wide gap, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, there's definitely some pieces I left out, which was Raymond can actually fill in the gaps here. Ray, talk about how you started your company out in Italy, and then how kind of like that merged into us working together. And then, I think that would add context. I don't know if you already talked about that in a different show, but you can go ahead.
Yeah, well, here I am. So for everyone who's listening, I lived in Italy for 4 years, and I actually graduated from an American accredited university in the heart of Rome. So during my time there was a senior capstone project. And during that project, we created a company. Our idea was creating almost like the Home Advisor Angie's List, but for the Italian market. My time in Italy was amazing. I loved that company and what I was working on, but I felt like there was something truly more for me. And when my dad came up to me and said, "Hey, you should come back to America and do something for the restaurant equipment repair industry. Son, this is where we need it. You grew up in the industry your entire life. You started as a dishwasher. This industry like the back of your hand. Why don't you create a company around this opportunity?" And that's where my eyes were opened up to the opportunity of what is now Repairs. And that's when I called David up and said, "Hey, Dave, I think there's an opportunity here in this $30 billion repair industry. Let's check it out." So that's how
I think Raymond's underplaying a little bit. Dad comes up to us, "Holy shit, my oven keeps breaking. Like please boys, like fix this." Like, our dad came to us out of like anger, frustration, and just annoyance, like to how this industry has been operating when it comes to the whole life cycle of repairs. And I think that's to answer back to your question, Josh, like what why would we make that switch? It was like the angst that our dad had in his voice when he was talking about this problem. Because like we had experienced it, sure, when we were working in the restaurants, but we weren't managing the bottom line. We weren't, buying these super expensive assets. That was my dad. So he was really feeling it. And I think that that's the biggest thing with starting a company, right, Josh? With Windy City and anything you've been working on, it's like it's problem equals massive. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity, and that's why we decided to run with it.
Yeah,
and
David,
that's
a great way to put it.
And David, I know that you're passionate about our company and repairs, but talk about what other things you're passionate about, like theater and the creative mind that you have. Dig deep into that, because I think that's a very cool quality.
Yeah. So it's actually funny. Growing up, I played a lot of sports, football, soccer, rugby. And there was always this, not that I was, pointing fingers, but there was always this sentiment about like the theater kids, like the theater kids, they're different than the sports people, but what's weird is I always had like this desire to like do a little bit of theater, but because I was so involved with sports, I never had the time, or it was just never came up. But then in college, I actually minored in theater, and I just came to really love, acting, doing that whole thing. Did a couple of short films, did a TED Talk on stage, which was like a real big, that was scary. Like I highly recommend anybody, if you have the opportunity to do one. Josh, I know you've been thinking about doing one, so you should do it. But I think that's when I realized that being on some sort of stage or taking on some sort of role is exciting to me, because I live this, life every day, which I love my life, but I also kind of love to, change it up, play a different character, and I think that's what acting can give me. And I just do it for fun. It's nothing serious. So to all our repairs customers, don't worry. I'm focused on it.
It's a good outlet. I got to say, I mean, to everybody listening, like there's a lot of business owners out there that have forgotten that they've had hobbies. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's a great quality to bring to the table, and to remember, kind of to keep you grounded, right? Remember who you are by pretending you're someone you're not.
Yeah. That the first monologue that I ever did in theater class was the Wolf of Wall Street monologue when he's on stage.
Oh, cool.
And I brought like a watch with me, because the part when he throws the watch into the crowd.
Yeah.
I had to do that, So I at the end I took off my watch, threw it in the crowd. But then I went up to the guy after. I was like, yo, can I get that watch back? Because I was still in college. I was like, I'm not just giving away my watch right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the story. And then we started the company at college, like in Cal Poly, because they had a platform for us to get it going. So we kind of took this crazy opportunity problem, said, hey, college, how can you support us in this insane endeavor? And they were really supportive of it. I actually was able to switch out a lot of my finance and like other classes to work on my company.
Oh, cool.
They actually filled that loophole after I'd left. But yeah, no, I went to the dean and said, hey, so I think I could substitute this. And I ended up taking like one class my senior year, and the rest was my startup. So
that's wild. So I'm going to ask a question real quick before we get too deep into the story that I'm sure a lot of people wonder, why repairs? What is the name itself, repairs? Talk to me about that.
Raymond can fill you in there.
So when I was living in Italy, I always ordered from this delivery service called Deliveroo. And for some reason, I was always so gravitated towards the brand. They had a kangaroo. It was a play on words, delivery, Deliveroo, roo, as in a kangaroo. And it was very clever, frankly. I thought it was a good play on words, and it always was ingrained in my mind. So whenever I went to an app to order food, I always thought of Deliveroo first. And when I was out in Italy, I also thought about, branding companies. It's really special when you can create a brand and then bring that brand to life. And especially with companies, when you look at MailChimp, you see like the chimpanzee and really understanding that brand and how it comes to life. So there's all these different examples of all these different companies that have created a brand, created a new word, and then taken that word and created something really magical and almost transformed into like a soul, like it's like an entity. So that was something that always really intrigued me. And when we started the company, we obviously had to figure out a name. Anybody who's listening to this podcast knows that when you start a company, usually the hardest part is, okay, well, what are we going to call the company? And so our initial name was Ruber, kind of like restaurant Uber. And that was terrible. Our lawyer was like, that's a terrible idea. So our initial idea was Ruber, kind of that quick service, understanding that play on words. But then we were really whiteboarding actually in the shed in our backyard. And this is really in the earliest days. We were locked up in a shed, just writing names on the walls, trying to understand what we wanted to do, what our mission was, and more importantly, what our name was going to be. That was usually a good starting point.
Do you happen to have a picture somewhere of, I mean, not to present today, but did you ever take a picture of like that wall of names?
You know what? We probably did. So
if you could find that, man, that's gold. That'd be awesome to see.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look back. I need to back up my iPhone to make sure it stores on the
iCloud. What's it called? I was, Ray, I appreciate you giving everybody the full context of that story. But if the CEO of Deliveroo for any reason is watching this podcast, please don't sue us. It was, we took inspiration from you. I was just going to say that, we thought of it,
Yeah, right.
But I do want to ask real quick, because I know we're going to keep telling our story, but flipping real quick, I was talking to a company the other day. They're like, who do you guys, do you have any advisors or people you work with? I'm like, oh yeah, Josh, Windy City Equipment. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, he's in Chicago, right? I'm like, no, he's in Arizona. So I have to ask Josh, like, Windy City, can we get that real quickly, that story on why Windy City is in the hottest place in the entire United States?
Yeah, that's funny. It's not super glamorous or anything. My dad's from Chicago. So that's it. My dad started the company back in 2003, right? And he called it Windy City Equipment. That's actually, though, why we rebranded to WCE, because we kept getting calls from Chicago saying, hey, you got to come fix our stuff. And I'm like, dude, you don't want to pay that trip charge, I promise. Yeah. So yeah, that's just like Kentucky Fried Chicken. We had to rebrand WCE because I understand it is a little bit confusing, but that's how it got here. It's just a tribute to where my dad grew up.
Well, with your growth, Josh, you'll be all over Chicago at some point, I'm sure, right?
I'm staying out of Chicago. Staying out of New York, Chicago, and LA. All right. Yeah. I'll let everybody else decipher that, but
fair enough.
Windy City Equipment, the only place he does not service is Chicago.
Chicago.
Cool. And, to close the loop on that whole question, a long-winded answer to say, when we were whiteboarding, we wanted something to play off the word repairs, because really that was the whole core of what we were building, kind of that repair and service process. And so we pretty much matched up repairs, pairs. And I remember in the moment we were like, David.
I just imagine both your eyes like.
Yeah, exactly. It was that moment where we looked at each other. We're like, this is it. It's pairs. And really that's where the company was born. And it's been a long journey since.
Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. And then who wants to give me the context of what repairs looked like when it was in its infancy?
Yeah, Dave.
It wasn't what it is now. I mean, a lot of people know us as a field service management platform, right? For the commercial food equipment industry. We didn't even know much about the service industry when we started the company. We were on the restaurant side. So we thought that, the service companies were a means to an end of our getting our equipment fixed, right? We didn't have that love and appreciation that we do after kind of getting entrenched into this industry. The platform was for restaurants to order service to recommended vendors in the area, right? It's going to be your Service Channel, Corrigo, EcoTrack, all the platforms that everyone in this industry loves. With the third-party portals, we were going to be another one of those, but for smaller businesses focused on those 1 to 5, 10 location companies. I don't think the idea wasn't bad. I mean, people are doing it, right? There's very successful third-party platforms that exist. But I think that as a first-time founders, of a company, bootstrapping, building a marketplace is really tough. And we realized that within the first year. And we looked at each other and we had to decide, like, do we keep doing this or do we pivot? And for a lot of people out there that may not understand what pivot means, it means in the startup world, it's like you have an idea and then you just totally just 90 degrees go the other direction. So that's kind of like what happened. We made that pivot and changed over to a field service management tool, but we didn't even pivot into that to start. It was one of our vendor customers said, hey, instead of just receiving jobs from your platform, from restaurants, is there a way that I can create my own jobs from scratch? So we didn't think that we were building field service management by building that one feature. But then after we built them the ability for them to create jobs, they said, well, can we create our own estimates? Can we create our own equipment? Can we create our own invoices? Can we have a dispatch board? And then it just, the rabbit hole began. So we definitely didn't know what we were getting into. If I would have known when we made that decision that we would be doing what we're doing now, I think we might not have done it because we are building such a massive platform for the industry, being that field service, for many who know our vision, is just phase one, So yeah, I think that the evolution is cool to think about, and hindsight's always 2020, but I'm really glad where we are today. And I think Ray can say the same.
That's great. But you know what? Before you, go ahead, Ray. Go ahead. I got one more question before that.
I was just saying, I just vividly remember when Dave and I went into the service company offices and we would see them taking our jobs and double entering and triple entering into their archaic and older systems. That's really where our mind was open. We're like, oh my gosh, as entrepreneurs, we need to be gravitated towards the real problem and the real pain points. And we just saw a lot of archaic manual entry, double and triple entry, old school ways that could be automated in many ways. So that's that our mind was just blown when we saw that.
Yeah. Well, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you for getting into field service management.
Yeah. No, well, you're welcome. It's funny because going back to what Ray just said, we don't think that restaurants don't have a big problem. We definitely agree that there's a significant issue there, but that issue is a 3 to 5% of revenue issue, right? Because that's how much repairs and maintenance takes up. Of course, there's the angst that you have when something goes wrong, but the service company problem that we're solving is their whole business, right? So I think that that's why it became a little more exciting to solve a whole industry, whole company problem, rather than just a small sliver of a single, industry.
Goes back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity.
Yeah. And the harder it is to solve.
Yeah, that's right. Those things go hand in hand, by the way.
Yeah.
So question for you both, if you both want to weigh in on this. And I ask this because I think that there's a lot of people within our industry, watching and listening to this podcast, and a lot of it is family owned. We know that, right? There's a lot of legacy style businesses, maybe a little less now that all these buyouts are happening, but that's a whole nother podcast. But what's it like working with your brother? That question can be posed to both of you.
Should we start? Where should we start with that?
You just talk over each other. It's probably pretty close.
Yeah,
right?
That's a perfect way to show it.
We can cut and edit, right?
So Raymond, speak on our time in Italy, and then I'll transition into our time in the hothouse. Okay.
So when David came to live with me in Italy, he was studying abroad, and I was already living out there full time.
And give me some context. How old were you guys?
I moved to Italy when I was 20. I was out there till I was 24. So
you were 22. I was 20 when I moved out there.
Yeah. So we were young. We were young. We were in college. We were enjoying life, building a company, and before that, though, we were living together in Italy. And I can honestly say that when David and I were living in Italy, it was the best years of our lives, as brothers. I frankly hope that we can get back to that point someday, but truly believe that we never fought. Like, we never argued. We just wanted to enjoy the time we had together. And there was never a moment where I was like, oh man, he's my brother. Like, shit. Like, like I was like, man, like, not only is he my brother, he's my best friend. And so I just truly enjoyed those times in Italy with David. And yeah, we shared so many great memories together. So.
Yeah, I would agree. That was definitely the best time of my life. Raymond was running his other company, Mr. Fix, which at that time I was still like doing nothing. Like, I was just traveling, living life. And Raymond showed me, like, ushered me into his community out there, met a lot of his friends, met a lot more, introduced Ray to mine. And we just did everything together, as Ray was saying, and it was great. And then we came back home. We thought, the idea of starting a company together would work, right? Because we get along so well and stuff. Unfortunately, it sucks, but, it just took a massive turn, starting a business with your siblings, even if you're on a good footing with them. I think that the stress of the business, like, you can't yell at the business. Like, I can't yell at the kangaroo on the whiteboard, So it's like, you naturally, and this is us being naive and starting business. We know now how to like handle our frustration and anger and stuff. But in the beginning, we were at the Hot House, which was the Cal Poly program that we had. And there were 6 teams, 3 on each side. And it was open seating. Like, everyone was kind of open talking. And we would just be yelling 24/7 at each other. Like we would always come to a solution. Like, so from our standpoint, it looked, off and like weird, but like, we would always come to a resolution.
To clarify, we're Italian, so maybe yelling is us just talking.
My wife's Italian. I completely understand.
Yeah. So it was definitely, tough. And I remember the Cal Poly people, people who were running the program, they made a bet on like which company was going to fail first. And we were like the first one. We were at the top of the list, obviously. And now, if you fast forward to today, of those 6 companies, there's only 2 left, and we're one of them. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, don't bet against us. That's your first mistake. But they did do a lot for us, I have to say that. So that's kind of, we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for Cal Poly's program, putting up with Ray and I. I don't know if we want to get into like who we like, the first couple hires, Ray. Should we talk about that?
No, we just had some awesome hires that were in the program.
Before that, I want to interject. Before that, I got a question for each one of you, and then we can move on.
Yeah,
right?
Please.
I want to know the one thing that sticks out that each of you learned from each other. So, David, what's the one thing, best thing that you learned from your brother? And Ray, same question to you.
You want to go first? Wait, learned from him, like he taught me, or like thing I've learned about him?
No, that he taught you.
Oh, that he taught me. Okay.
Yeah, either directly or indirectly. Right?
I would say the biggest thing that I learned from David is, for me, when I get excited, I just want to go. I just want to. I want to make a decision, and I want to move, and I want to move fast. And I believe that one thing that David has taught me through this experience is to really understand the situation, understand the pros and cons, the implications, and be more methodical on how to, whether it's build something or solve a problem. And he's taught me patience in many ways, on how to make decisions in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. David?
Cool. You're welcome. So I think that Ray and I are very different people. Like, if you lived with us in Italy together, you'd think we're the same. You'd think we're twins. If you know us now, you'd think we're very different people. And I think that works really well in starting a company together, because Ray sees things that I don't, and I see things that Ray doesn't see. And I think the thing that Raymond makes me very well aware of is how there needs to be a sense of balance, like in in the organization, especially where I am this super, out there, excited, crazy person running around, but Raymond kind of brings like this calmer demeanor to situations. And I think that's why Raymond handles the investors. Raymond handles, all of the finances and stuff. I think that stuff is just not where, like, Ray's really good at understanding how certain people work and what they're good at, So the decision was made very early that I should focus on the product and this side of the business, where Raymond should focus on the finances and the investors. And that was Raymond's recognition, because he was able to see into how we work through observation. And if we didn't have those roles set in place, we would be constantly reaching over each other's plate, trying to do each other's things. And I think that's really important, is picking a side and staying on it, but always still having some sort of line of sight into other people's work so that you can stay kept in the loop, I guess. So Raymond, I can credit Raymond to that kind of structure.
I could see that. Definitely. So you both spending time in in Italy. Maybe you can relate, maybe not. I'm a big philosophy buff. I see a lot of stoicism in Ray, and I see a lot of Epicurean in David. Is that fair?
I know what stoicism means. I don't know what Epicurean means. I'm going to think they're opposites.
Just a little bit different philosophy, right? Stoicism is kind of the calm, cool, collected. It's a preferred indifference, right? It's everything in life is either a preferred or dispreferred indifference. And so you kind of keep this steady hand. Epicureans more, the meaning of life is to enjoy every second, and however you can get the fruits of life to your heart and to your soul is fair game. So basically, I mean, that's just
that's interesting,
lowly observation from afar, but it's one thing's for sure. You guys have found a way to work really well together. I mean, I've been working with you guys now for 2 years, something like that. And I think that one of the reasons why Repairs is growing as quickly as it is and is thriving the way that it is right now is because of the different characteristics and elements that you each bring to the table. So that's why I was curious what you learned from each other. But good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
I appreciate you asking it. It's good to remind ourselves of what each other, not just what we've built together, but like what we've taught each other, underlying stuff behind it,
Man, we're getting deep here.
Yeah.
Love it.
Where's the tissue?
Yeah, you didn't think you were going to get therapy here, did you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? On that note, Josh, and you mentioned kind of why you're working with us, and there's many people that know that we're business partners. We're in a working capacity. Josh is an advisor to Repairs, but I think
we're friends. Don't forget that.
And we're friends outside of business. So I think it would be nice for the audience to know really more in depth of why you're working with Repairs, the opportunity you see in what we're building, and also for your company and for the future of the industry. So I'd love to rewind a little bit and maybe for you to speak on how we met.
Take us back 2 years.
Why you got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I met Ray first. So I met Ray at FedCon 2020.
Shout out Rich.
Yeah, shout out to Rich, Mr. Rich Maliki. If you don't know who he is, why not? But no, we were at FedCon together, and I had no idea what this Repairs was. The Repairs was, and Ray and I started talking, and it was an intriguing concept. I didn't really think too much about it. I mean, there's software companies that come in and out, and usually it's in one ear out the other. But Ray seemed like a cool dude, kind of similar to my personality, right? Calm, cool, and collected until I get really pissed off. But you usually don't see it because I got to get pushed to a certain point. But it was great, right? And then honestly, it was after that, and I think. So Ray told me that David was going to be at RIFMA.
Right.
Right?
Shout out RIFMA.
What's that?
Shout out RIFMA.
Shout out from RIFMA, right? And funny story, I don't know if I even told you guys this. I didn't know which one of you I met at Fed. I honestly, I didn't remember. I don't think I just, from afar, you guys look pretty similar, right? I mean, clearly you're brothers. You get that a lot. And so I'm looking at it. I'm like, one of these guys I met, I met at Fed. And then it wasn't until I actually had met you, David, at RIFMA that I was like, this is not who I met. This is definitely not who I met. And that's when you first gave me the whole rundown, right, from a bird's eye view. Ray, you tried, but I wasn't really giving you the time of day. My apologies about that. I was getting pulled in every direction at Fed, but I did spend some time with David there, and he did give me the whole rundown on what the vision was of repairs. And it got me thinking, right? I was really intrigued by the concept, and anybody who knows me knows that all the time I talk about how this industry is ripe for change, and one big aspect of that is software. Mm-hmm. And, so after hearing the vision, then I think that we had set up a formal meeting where, I had talked to both of you, probably on a Zoom call or something like this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you took me through everything. And it was there when I got to see both of you interact together, right? Which is kind of going back to what I was talking about the balance, that you two have in the organization. And it's not every day, I got to say, it's not every day that you see somebody your age, right, in this industry with that much passion about helping the people in this industry. Ever since then, I was just like, how do you not work with people like you? And really, don't get it twisted. It's you, it's the people. It's not all the product. The product is great, and the product is just the icing on the cake. But just the way that you two both act and how much you clearly care about this industry is what hooked me. And I said, okay, well, doesn't really matter what the product looks like now, because I know they're dedicated to making it the best damn product that this industry has ever seen. There's not a doubt in my mind about that. So that's it. That's why I'm working with repairs.
That's why you're a Ruer.
A Ruer? Is that what we're doing now?
I'm
gonna get that neck tattoo right here.
There's no ephemeral tattoos that only last a year. So
nice. But yeah, and listen, Ray, I don't know. You want me to go into some of the reasons why software like repairs is necessary?
Yeah. Like, what are your, obviously you own a very successful service company, and your dad started, it's a family business. You guys are growing like crazy. It's frankly really exciting to watch. Like, what are some pain points you see in not only service company operations, but your business, and just where you see the future of this industry and why, why you're working?
And Josh, and to add to that, can you fill in how the vision of repairs fits into that? Because maybe not everybody on this call knows maybe our full vision. So it might be helpful to understand.
Yeah. I'll make sure I touch on that as I go.
Sweet.
So I'll kind of bring it back. So, when I first came on to Windy City, my dad started the company in 2003. I came on in 2008, right? So about 5 years later. And when I got here, my dad wasn't even accepting credit cards. Like, literally it was, hey, write me a check, and that's it. And so I kind of introduced the technology aspect to it. Everything from accepting credit cards to, utilizing QuickBooks the way that it needed to be utilized and stuff like that once I actually learned the business itself. But the first product that we used to try to digitize what we were doing was called Zora. I don't know if either of you know what Zora is. You probably wouldn't. I don't even think it's called Zora anymore. It was AT&T used to offer it as like a package. But anyway, it was like a workflow type software for service companies. You couldn't invoice on it, but you could log everything else and take pictures, and it just didn't do what we needed it to do. It was fine, but that kind of sparked my interest, right? That was like, okay, well, if this can do that, what other software is out there that could help us run our organization and work with QuickBooks? So eventually we ran into a software called ESC by Desco, which has been bought and sold a million times now. It's Field Edge for those who are listening. So, ESC was a fine product and our technicians liked it. The back office liked it. It was a little bit clunky, it wasn't really, the user experience wasn't necessarily all there, but it was okay. It did what we needed it to do. However, to your point, David, we were growing like wildfire, right? And it was hard to keep up with, and just unfortunately, that software couldn't keep up with our growth, right? And so we needed to look towards something else, which then we landed on the software that we're using now, which is SAM Pro by Databasics, and listen, for what we've needed, it has served its purpose, but I think I can speak for a lot of service companies out there when I say that, the software that you can find in this industry will never be what you need it to be. All right. Mm-hmm. It's just, a lot of it is very antiquated. This is an older style industry, typically has lagged behind in certain technologies and stuff like that. And it was never put on the forefront because there was always other ways of doing things. There's always paper invoices. There's always, balancing the books, and QuickBooks served the purpose for a long time because, who needs the front end when you got the back end figured out? And it's just, so all of these things led to, some of these major softwares in our industry just being painstakingly difficult to navigate. I mean, really, it's a result of years and years of people saying, well, you need to add this, you need to add that, you need to add this, you need to add that, but nothing ever goes away. So there's so many different ways to do something. There's so many different avenues for people to go, rabbit holes for employees to go down. I mean, who knows if they're pushing the right button, the wrong button, it just becomes noise at that point, and it's just incredibly complex and difficult to understand. So that's kind of been our experience so far from a software perspective, and then you add the other things on top of it. What you were talking about, David, right, is being able to communicate with the people that we need to communicate with. Not only do we need to communicate with our staff, our vendors, and our customers, we also need to communicate with dealers, with reps, with manufacturers, and, most recently, third-party providers, service channels and Corrigos and EcoTracks. There are so many different lines of communication in this industry, and not a solution to bring them all together. Not a solution for A to talk to B, to B to talk to C, to C to talk to A. It just doesn't exist until now, right? Until you guys, are able to bring to fruition what you're trying to right now, what you are. But, I think that, I don't like to speak for people, right? And I don't like to generalize, but this is, from an industry perspective, an issue. And I think that a lot of people out there might agree.
And I really appreciate the kind words, first of all, for all that. And there's one person who told me this, and this is also a generalization, so don't just take the concept of it, where everybody in this industry calls everybody my customer, right? So you'll call the restaurant my customer, the dealer will call the restaurant my customer, the parts vendor, if they sell directly, say the same thing, the reps, the everybody, right? My customer, my customer, my customer. How can we, and the software is built like that too. Like it's all very siloed across the industry. Everybody uses their own software to deal with my customer. How can we build a software which is really speaking to our customer? Like how, let's work together to satisfy our customer. And that's the thesis behind the software that we're trying to build and the vision behind it. Field service and service companies and their technicians and their staff, that's just phase one into this whole kind of gambit. So it's going to be fun.
And David, to build off that, what is phase two? What is phase three? What do the next phases of this product look like? And what are the types of customers we're currently satisfying? What are the types of customers that we'll be satisfying in the near future? Hopefully someone like Josh from Windy City, and where are we going with the product?
Yeah, totally. I was smiling because I've been recently getting into like superhero movies and Marvel. I don't know, like if anyone else listening is a big fan of like Marvel and stuff, but
I love the Marvel series.
yeah, they're so good. And they just came out with on stage, they like came out with their phase 4, phase 5. So when you said that, I'm imagining like repairs on this big, you're in space. It's like phase 2 repairs. We should really recreate that. But anyways, I'm really good at going on tangents. Phase 1.0 right now is building software for smaller service companies, 1 to 15, 20 technicians to run an efficient service business with only the tools that they need. Like that's it. Job scheduling, invoicing, estimating, equipment management for your company's direct connection to your customers. Like just really what you need. Not saying that we don't have a lot more awesome things planned, but we wanted to start with that. Phase 1.5, I'd say, would be bringing on companies like Josh, larger companies, 20 to 50, 60 technicians. There's a lot of integrations that we need to build still, a lot of industry specific workflows that we're kind of nailing down right now. So a lot of work to do, but we're making great progress. And actually, a lot of that progress has been due to our product advisory board that we have once a month. And I want to give a shout out to everybody on that board who's been helping us. And we've actually recently opened up that board to more members of our community. So if you're interested in being a part of that product advisory board, it meets once a month. Shoot Ray or myself or Josh a DM, and we'd love to discuss that opportunity. There's no cost. Just show up for 30 minutes. We talk shop, show you new features, and you guys get to help influence the product roadmap. So that's, sorry about the plug, but I had to get people into that. And I'd say moving into phase 2 is where we're getting into the manufacturers. We really want to build technology that connects what we call the center part of this ecosystem. It's like if a restaurant has a problem with their equipment, who are the 2 people that are most capable and most important in solving that issue? It's going to be manufacturer and the service company, in my opinion. I think obviously out of warranty, you may not need to call the manufacturer, but at the end of the day, you're going to be using their manuals, you're going to be using, their parts. So they're really at the forefront, the service company and the manufacturer. And if they work so much together, why isn't the technology that they're working in directly connected? And that's what Repairs is trying to do is build a warranty management platform for service companies to connect better with those manufacturers. So with our service product, you're dispatching to your technicians, your employees. With our manufacturer product, you're dispatching to your ASAs. So similar concept, just different style of workflow. But that's phase 2. Phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. Well, let's save that for later. Marvel, they don't give it out all the time. There's Easter eggs though. We'll leave the Easter eggs for you in different podcasts.
There you go. There you go.
Amazing.
So yeah, we're really excited. I think phase 2 will probably, we've already started on it in terms of like the development of the product and like the research behind it. So if you're a manufacturer and you're not ecstatic about the way your company runs warranty, reach out to us and we'd love to understand more about your problems and see if we can solve them. So yeah.
And to clarify too, for anyone who's watching, we always talk about, we're building, and sometimes there's this, I guess, perception of, like the product's not ready for my company yet, or that, maybe they haven't launched yet. And just to clarify, we've had commercial kitchen service companies on our platform for the last 3.5 years, running on repairs, thriving. And a lot of these companies have been mom and pop shops, 1, 10, 20 technician teams. So, our platform is live. It's rocking and rolling. It's solid, but we never believe a product is complete. A product can always get better. And so when Dave and I are referring to building, it's not saying that we're not there yet. It's saying we're never there because we have so many aspirations and hopes for where we want this industry to be. And so just for clarification, we have a company, we have customers, we're just not satisfied.
It's an infinite game.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why we're subscription based. You don't buy a CD to repairs. We earn the right every month. We have to earn your business. So that means we got to get right back to work after this podcast. And Josh, and frankly, Josh will call us up and say, "Hey, I just came across this issue in my company." And I'm like, "All right, here's another thing we got to solve for."
Like put it on the list.
Yeah, new things keep coming up because our industry is evolving. Wouldn't you say that, Josh? I mean, you're in it.
Absolutely. The industry is always evolving, and there's always new things to consider, new things to do, new things that we see. I mean, there's shit that, that's been around forever that I still haven't even seen as an issue or problem or solution in my business, that has been seen in a ton of other businesses across the industry, so there's just so many moving parts in this, which is honestly why, having a new player in the software space is so exciting, because everyone's asking the same question, is how can they manipulate these moving pieces? What can they do differently to make all these moving pieces, work in a flow, right? How can it all flow together? And it's a question that nobody has been able to answer yet, and so
I can kind of answer why we think we can do it.
let's do it. Answer it, man. Let's go.
The answer is that we don't really. Okay, I was going to say something. We don't pay attention to other industries. I'm not going to say I don't care. I care about all of the trades, right? Every trade is important in some way, shape, or form. But in terms of the software that we're building, I don't pay attention to the plumbers. I don't pay attention to the electricians. They have their own software and they're good. But the commercial food equipment industry, like, that's what I care about. And I think that Ray and I and our team, we don't get pulled in many different directions. Everybody asks for the same thing, right? Like, everyone's asking for these integrations to third party. Everyone's asking for connections to manufacturers. So our product roadmap, the things that we have to do, sure, there's a lot of things that we have to do, but they're all very linear. Like, and we're able to shape our roadmap a lot more effectively. So I think that in the end game, that's why we'll be able to succeed, is because we don't have to build everybody's everything. We just have to build something really great for this vertical.
No, that's awesome. And that's why I'm an investor. I'm an advisor because I love you guys. I'm an investor because I love the product.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And we're happy to have you. You've been game changing. In times of need, you've come in and picked us up from our, sadness. It's tough running a business. Anybody out there who has their own business, the first couple of years, what has it been, right? 3 years, 4 years that we've been working on the company. It's stressful, man, and I think that, we're getting to a point that there's like this threshold you hit, I guess, of like, holy shit, this is going to work, and you kind of don't always know that in the beginning, but I think with the support that we've gotten and the people who are just waiting to join, like, it's pretty evident. Now it's about execution. And I think that that's where Ray and I got to really hone in and just get our team going. Our team's growing too. So if you know any software engineers, designers, marketing, anything like that, any friends or family that doesn't necessarily want to be working at a food equipment service company, but wants to be in the industry. Hey,
trades adjacent. I like it.
Yeah, trade adjacent.
So that's awesome. So before we wrap this up, listen, I know that you guys are still building, right? And you've got a lot of business experience left to learn, but you have also experienced a lot, and I'd venture to say a lot more than maybe most people your age. So, do you have any advice for business owners out there? Maybe anybody involved in a startup or anybody involved with just starting a business and beginning to grow a business. What have you learned that could help somebody else?
Oh, I mean, this could be its own podcast. But for the sake of having Ray here, the first thing I thought of. So I think that you really need a co-founder in your business. You really need a business partner, because I'm not going to doubt anyone's willpower to get up in the morning. But when I'm frustrated, when I'm upset, when I don't want to work today, I just think about that. Like, I don't suffer. I'm not the only one who suffers from me slacking off. Like, I'm letting my brother down. I'm letting my other co-founder, Alex, down. So I think that there's this like inherent kind of pressure and desire to succeed when you have other people in it with you. And I think that's the same thing with having Josh as an investor. Like the last thing I want to do, right, is have, fail Josh, or fail Ray. So I think that sort of choosing to put pressure on yourself in different ways through investors and co-founders. That's why the first investors we took were family and friends. I wanted their money first because I knew that I would never want to fail, because I could never go back to those people and say that like, I'm not going to, 10x your money. I'm sorry. I couldn't live. So yeah.
Yeah. Choosing where the pressure comes from. That's powerful. That's the first time I've heard that.
So at the end of that statement, Dave, you said, I never want to fail. And to tie back to your question, Josh, I believe any entrepreneur that starts a company, they will be successful if they never give up.
Yes.
Now the question becomes, are you going to lose motivation? What fuels you to wake up every morning? And if you don't have that desire to work on the company anymore, then the company fails. When we started our company, we were on the restaurant side, but we refused to fail. So we pivoted and went to the service industry. And so my biggest advice to any entrepreneur out there is sometimes you feel like maybe the classic saying, fake it till you make it, right? Or maybe you feel like almost like you're not building a real company. And in those earlier stages, you almost feel like maybe you're like a fraud, right? Or you don't feel like you can actually get it done.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, exactly. I actually like to think of a new way of thinking about it, a puffer fish. When a puffer fish gets big, right? They're looking a lot bigger than what they really are, but they're actually being very strong-willed and understanding that, okay, I have two different forms. I come from a smaller fish, but I can become big. And the fake it till you make it. Well, we're not fake, we're real at Root Pears. So I like to use the puffer fish kind of analogy. But the biggest thing is just never giving up. That's really the key. Never giving up, always finding motivation and leaning on your business partners and your co-founders, and just staying true to who you are, and you'll succeed.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. Also, never giving up. And my dad used to say the same thing. He would always say that failure doesn't exist as long as you never give up. Right.
And Josh, for you, I'd love to flip that question before we close out. What are your thoughts on that? You've built a company with your dad. What do you think about it all?
I would say that consistency is the key to success. There's a lot of people that that don't think that there is a key to success or one single key to success. I do. I think it's consistency. Kind of to your point, Ray, getting up every day. And listen, yeah, you know what? There's going to be days that you wake up and you don't want to work on your business. There's going to be days you wake up and you're not going to feel passionate about it, and you're not going to want it. And you know what? It's going to extend beyond days. Sometimes it's going to go to weeks. Sometimes it's going to go to months. And hell, for some people, sometimes it could last a year, but you need to remember to find the passion in what it is that you do, right? Not fixing fryers or coding, right? It's the people that you're helping and what you're doing on a larger scale. But consistency is the key to it all, right? Because it's really easy when you wake up in that day, in that week, in that month to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's what 99.9% of people do, is they say, I don't want to do this anymore. And they don't. And they either, it's called pivoting for a reason, right? It's called pivoting because you still got one foot stationary, right? But most people don't pivot. Most people just completely change course. And they throw up their arms and they say, this isn't working, and I'll try something else. Yeah. And then they do that again and again and again and again. And they wake up and they're 60 years old and they realize that they never gave anything enough of a chance and they weren't consistent enough to make it a success. Because every single day that you wake up and you work, whether you want to or not, you're moving yourself closer to success.
And usually when you have an idea and you're doing something, you're usually in a good area, you're close, so it's like, you're right. Like just pivot a little bit, like you're so close, and then they just walk the other direction. So yeah, no, I agree. My coach used to always say in rugby, he didn't say the word consistency, but he would say, get 1% better every day.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'm consistent in writing emails every day. Sure. But like the consistent part of like, every day I'm learning something, every day I'm doing this, and like no days off in that respect. And I know you're always teaching me things. So I feel like that's something you're a big believer in.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it too, David, because you can consistently suck too. So, so 1% better is a great way to frame that, because you're consistently, getting that much better every day. Even 1% compounded is 365% a year. So
is that actually how the numbers work? Because I feel like there might be a trick in there that's like.
Or did you go to school for finance, bro?
Why do you think I stopped? I'm out of finance. Ray's like, hey, do you want to get out of finance? I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good stopping point, guys. I think that our audience learned a hell of a lot, about both of you, about repairs, and even a little about me. So thank you both. And if there's anything else you want to interject before we hop off.
David, where can they find you if they want to get in touch with you?
I love how you're treating me like a guest. I'm literally on the intro sequence of the podcast. Okay, to audience, I am a pseudo guest. I'm gonna come on and off the show depending upon the situation. Everyone's asking me, hey, when's the product? When are you coming out with this feature? The reason I'm not on the show is because I'm working on the features. So I'll come in and out. But to answer Ray's question, thanks again for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. You can find me on in Instagram if you want. My name's Turtleneck Dave. That's a longer story, which I didn't even get into. LinkedIn, of course, Twitter, Turtleneck Dave. And yeah, you can find me hanging out with Josh and Ray on a beautiful sunset at Cefessa this coming September. So.
What are you saying?
I don't know. I'm running out
like a desperate attempt to end on a really high note.
I'm trying to figure out where they can find me, and I honestly don't know where else.
And you gravitated towards with Ray and Josh looking at a sunset.
Cut the show. Cut it now.
All right, guys. Hey, no, this was great. I appreciate it. And until next time.